Hello everyone, my name is Vitaly Honchar and today I will continue my session for designing Flowrun service. On the previous video I recorded how I designed service itself. Today I want to design API and DSL language for prompts, so let's go. First of all, let's recap. So we have data schema, task, model provider, flow. So let's start from API. Let's put it here. API design. So what we will have, basically we need to have a CRUD for each of this model. So let's start from provider. Let's write here provider. What is this? XL. Let's put here L. Also let's write here. So what we will need to do with provider. First of all, we need to create provider. It will be post v1 provider, and it will accept JSON body. Let's do it like this. Let's do ID. So what it will accept ID. Usually UUID. Usually software services tries to generate ID on the handling creation of an entity, but we are not going to auto-generate ID because I want to implement the duplication. I will explain it. So we will have ID, name, for example, anthropic. Let's make it smaller. Why so big? Let's put two spaces here. ID, name, type, API key, account. Type. Type will be anthropic, name will be any name defined by user. Let it be DevOps LM provider. Type anthropic. Next, API key. API key. It will be string with API key. So why we need ID here? Because this ID we will not auto-generate. Instead, we will require a client to auto-generate this ID just to perform the duplication of requests. In case if client will send two requests to create a provider with the same body, there is a possibility that this happened because client retried creation of a provider due to network lag or due to some error. That's why we need to do not process second request, because we don't want to create two providers instead of one provider. And by having ID, we will just check that a provider already exists and return an error. And it will be done automatically due to primary key constraint violation error, because ID will be primary key for this provider. That's why I want to pass ID in the body to create a provider instead of auto-generated. Okay, we have post provider. Next we will have get provider. Also, it was to mention that here we don't need to specify account ID, because we will populate account ID depending on the session. But actually no, let's do not depend on the session, because maybe we will have some admin account which will create providers for different sub accounts. So let's put it here. Account ID. It will be UID as well. So let's go next. We have here get provider ID. We will return provider by provider ID. It basically pretty similar. Post get. Let's put here update method. We put. Let me check that I am not wrong. Because post create resource, put update resource. Okay, let's go next. Post get put. And let's put last one, delete provider. Delete. Okay, it's good. Also, let's populate account ID here. Okay, account ID is present here. So let's go next. It was provider. Let's design API for all other entities. Next will be model. I'll just copy this method, this API, and put it here. Let me put here model. So what we will have here, we will need to create model. Model will have provider name, account ID. So we will have ID, UID, name. Next we'll have provider ID, which will be provider ID, and account ID. Yeah, it's good. Let's delete it. Get will return for model. Let's put here ID and the same for consistency in these APIs. For put we will have the same model ID, and here model ID. Okay, with model everything is clear. Let's go to define our task, because as you remember, LLM task data is embedded field. We will not have this. We will not have this entity which will live in the database separately. It will be embedded in the task. So let's go to the task. What will have ID, name. Here we need to change the name for model, because it will be not DevOps LLM provider. Instead, it will be something like ChatGPT 4.1. Not ChatGPT, GPT 4.1. So it will be a name of model which we are going to use. Also, let's put it OpenAI instead of Anthropic for consistency. Okay, let's go next. Task ID, name, type. We need type. Let's put type, and here will be a num value, which will be a type of task, and type will be LLM task as far as yes, LLM task. So let's put it here, LLM task. Let's go next. Type data. It's embedded JSON field, which will be specific for task type, parameters the same. It will be JSON schema embedded field, which will represent what parameters task will asset. Account ID will be the same. So let's delete this. We will have task, and let's put our body for this methods. Okay, we have post, get, put, delete. Let's go next. Task was created. Let's account. Let's create account. It's pretty similar because again it's basic CRUD operations. Account, but let's explicitly specify them because it will help me to develop Flowrun, and especially with LLMs, which can do it really quick. ID, name, description, account, let's say DevOps, account, description, DevOps team, account. Let's just DevOps team. Okay. So account is here, and last one was we need to create a flow. Let's go to the flow. So we will have flow. What's here? Name, description. Let's name flow. Okay, so name, description, name, let's say here, DevOps analysis, description. Do we need description? Okay, let's leave description maybe for the future. Code analysis, description, parameters. So parameters, it will be the same JSON schema parameters, which will represent what data flow accepts to start execution, and then will be the same as a first task in the flow graph. We need to specify it here just to simplify our execution, but we can compute them from the first task which will be executed, so we may even simplify our schema, but let's have duplication of data here and just to simplify code. Because it's not too hard to specify parameters, especially when we will speak about DSL. Maybe I will change it. I don't know. Let's sync. Okay, next we will have nodes. So nodes will be embedded JSON array of nodes which we will use to execute the flow, and edges will be the same embedded JSON array of nodes connections, and account ID. Actually need to double sync if we really need parameters here, because let me put a note here. Let me put it here. I think probably we can calculate parameters from the first node. Probably we can. Anyway, let's continue our design, and next when we will write a code, we will change it. So let's think about DSL, and next see if I will delete these parameters from the flow. So what else? Okay, all good. Nodes and edge will be embedded fields in the flow, entity, so we don't need tables for them. Then let's go next. API design is good. Let me put it slightly here, and let's say that we will design DSL. So we will have DSL design. This project is inspired by Terraform and Kubernetes DSL languages, and I want to allow developers to define these entities as with infrastructure as code approaches in YAML files, as in this example, because I think it will simplify hugely complexity of working with LLMs. That's why let's think how it will work. First of all, if we are following this infrastructure as code philosophy, we need to define our provider. So it will be something like provider. Let's say providers. Next we will define our name. The LLM provider. We don't need to, as far as this is DSL, the main purpose of which is to simplify working with service for end developer. We don't need to put it here, UUID, and require developer to generate it by his own hands. And the same about account ID, because then it's not DSL, it's just raw usage of API, but from YAML files. That's why, okay, let me specify DSL design YAML. That's why I am not including ID and account ID in this provider section. So let's think here. We will have a couple of DSL sections. We will have provider sections, which will have name, type, API key. Actually, let's do this. UID. Let's put UID here. So it will be our API key, because anyway API key will be something big and strange. Let's go next. Name, for example, developers, LLM, provider. This is for developers, team code analysis. API key. So we will have this section committed in some repository, or API key managed by secrets, but right now we are not providing secrets as in first versions of Terraform. Let's allow them hardcode and commit. Yes, and let's think. I don't want to provide explicitly here ID and account ID. That's why we need to have some state. Like in Terraform, we need to have some state for my DSL. So how it will looks like? We will have our folder with collections of YAML files. Let's say it Flowrun infrastructure folder. And what we will have here, we will have here something like we will have something like providers .yaml, which will be collections of provider statement to create them. Next we will have models, YAML, and anything else, but we will consider it later. What's interesting is that we need to have here inner folder or inner file like Flowrun state. Flowrun state.json file, because we need to store our state for this project somewhere to allow us perform DSL actions, because with DSL actions we will have the same possibilities like with Terraform. So we should be able to create, update, delete our resource, define it in the DSL or like in Kubernetes. As far as I am not specifying here, any ID. We need to generate them and store somewhere, and it will be in this JSON file. That's why JSON file, this Flowrun state, will store basically this body for our providers. That's why it will looks like very big JSON object. Let me just start writing it here. So what we will have here: providers, So we will have JSON object is providers, and here will be defined list of providers, defined in YAML file. Next we will have a list of models, and let's put models here. So we will have a list of models here, and the same we will have a list of tasks here, is in the same way. We will have a list of tasks here. I will omit it for simplicity. List of tasks here and list of flows here. We don't need to put list of accounts here because it will not be possible to create account from this DSL. As far as to create to run DSL, we already need to have an account. That's why we need to add to this JSON state some account. No, we don't need to add to the JSON state any account information. We can get it from environment variable. Okay, so, and by putting this information in JSON state file, we are allowing to simplify our DSL language in the YAML files, and perform all operations with entities by reading DSL YAML files, reading JSON state, matching JSON state with DSL YAML files, and perform our operations with our entities. Also, here with DSL in provider and DSL JSON state, we need to think about one thing. Look, we have two providers, develop LLM provider, developer LLM provider, and to provide this declared in our providers array in Flowrun state.json file. What if, how can we match these two providers with each other? We don't have any unique ID to match these providers, because I decided do not include ID in the DSL file. So we can match them by names, but developer can change name of these providers. Second option, we can match them by array index, and I think it's better option because we should allow to change name, but changing position in the list, it's not necessary actually. Or otherwise we can have last option. No, let me select. Let me think. Because we need somehow, if developer will change, for example, name to this, how we will know that ID from this provider related to this changed provider, because we need to update this provider, and we need somehow to associate this provider with first provider in the array. So we may have association by index, by name, or But if you will associate by name, it means that name shall be immutable, because if you will change name, we need to delete previous provider, create new provider, or throw an error. So it's not flexible approach. I want to allow name to change, because name is business representation of this provider and it should be allowed to change. That's why, let me think, maybe so okay, we changed name by index. By index it's the most easiest approach, but we don't allow to change an order of entities list in the DSL file. Okay, let's do it. Let's match our entities by index. And let's go next. We have provider, we have model, so with models we will have the same models, name, GPT 4.1, provider, and here is interesting thing. Name type, name, no type, we don't have type. We have name and provider. And provider, I want to specify name because primary purpose of DSL is to simplify development for developers. We don't, if we are going to support here specifying provider ID, it will be very hard to developers to match provider ID, which will be UUID, a string like this, with actual provider. That's why I want to specify here provider name in the field provider for models. And then when we will parse our JSON state, we will match our provider by its name with model configuration. And in case if provider changed name but model didn't change a name, we will throw an error because it means that it's not valid configuration for model. So let's go next. So here, what we are doing here, we are just adding some, let's say, syntax sugar or some convenient approaches for end prompt developer to develop prompts and this configuration, but in the same time we are introducing some complexity of handling this DSL files, and we need to introduce our state file like in Terraform, but it's okay because it's our end client. We want to make his life easy, and we will have our life a little bit complex with custom CLI program which will run this DSL files, but it's okay. Let's go next. We can have tasks and even more. So these files can be defined, these entities can be defined in one YAML file or in multiple YAML files. So it's not matters for us. Model, let's say task. We have task, and with task what we have here, we have name, let's Terraform PR, we have type, LLM task, we have type, we have data, we have data. Data will be something like what's here? Model prompt output schema. Model. We will have a name of model, define it in the model section. 4.1 prompt. We'll have prompt, and finally we will have output schema. Output schema. So it will be JSON schema, where we will define our result. So we will have structured result from LLM call. And in the output schema, we will define JSON schema for that result. In the DSL, I think I want to define output schema in YAML file, in YAML format instead of JSON, to simplify our DSL. But let me think how. Analyze this PR. Let's say we'll have recommendations. Something will be like this. Array. Okay, let's I don't remember how to define JSON schema. I need to read about this. Just let's say here JSON schema in YAML. And put it here. Also parameters, the same thing here. Parameters and data parameters. We will define here JSON schema in YAML as well, because we will define what parameters task assets to execute. Let's go next. Account we are not going to put in DSL, and let's go to speak about a flow. Let's put it here. Flow. Actually, maybe let's ask Claude to generate for us some JSON schema, and put real JSON schema here to understand what we are going to do here. But before that, let's speak about flows. We will have flow, we will have name, DevOps analysis. We will have description, code analysis, parameters, nodes, edges. So nodes, what we will have in nodes, we will have list of nodes where we will have name of node, for example start node. Next we will refer to a task, and by name we will resolve which task we will use for this node. second node. In the task we'll specify another task by name. By name again we will resolve a task, and edges. We will specify here from start node to second node, and in the same way. So let's see. Let's ask generate JSON schema for this LLM config. Generate JSON schema in YAML format with 3 fields. Okay, JSON schema. It's too much for me to put this all JSON schema in our DSL file, because I want to have simple file definition and not this huge JSON schema definition. Let me ask to generate it in JSON. So under the hood, I will use JSON schema to communicate with LLM API and populate structure output constraints, but probably for DSL I will not use JSON schema, because I don't want to include so huge object in it. Let me think. So type array items. Oh, I see. He included. Here it is output schema. So no, it's not too bad. So only this is output schema. Type object description. Need description. Properties type string. Properties type object. Additional properties required. Let's think. Output schema should contains only let's say PR analysis, change requests, array with a description that if no change requests it should be empty, and recommendations array. Review status enum with values approve, change request, comment. Output schema. I need here type. Don't need type. Type object properties, change request. It's objects. It's objects. No, put in output schema only 3 fields. change requests, recommendations, review status, and provide a response only for output schema in YAML format. Okay, it's much more better. This one we can include actually. So let's copy it and see how it will looks like. Okay, let's put it here. Okay. So what we don't need type object. Again, it's a DSL. We don't need to fully specify here JSON schema. We can parse our DSL and add method fields in runtime. So let's see, output schema, change request, okay, recommendations, okay, review status, okay, required. Required is not, we don't need, because as far as we are defining the schema for LLM, all our fields will be required. Otherwise, we will create ambiguity and LLM will not know if it's required field or not required field. So let's go next. I think it's clear here. It's really clear here how our output schema will looks like. I will not include this output schema here in these parameters because, oh, actually, let's include. So what will have parameters? Let's say URL type string, description, URL to GitHub PR, author, not author, let's say priority, or not priority, let's say Jira task. Let's imagine that LLM will go and get GitHub PR for review and also will go and get Jira task to understand what need to review. String, description, URL to Jira task with requirements. Okay, let's go next. So what is next? We defined parameters, and here I think it's complete DSL design. We will have a CLI application which will parse YAML files and perform this API actions to create, update, delete these models. Oh, and what we need to do, we need to introduce Materialize API, which will accept this JSON file and execute business logic to create, update or delete flows. So we will basically have one endpoint, Materialize endpoint, which will ask this state file. I mean, not state file, but resolved a DSL expression with state, merge it together and prepare it for Flowrun to materialize. And by materializing, it will go through all entities and perform required actions, update, delete, or create. So, and last one, what I want to do today, I want to delete this parameters field from the flow, because from this node I can calculate my start node from edge. This is just graph. I will calculate my start node, and from it I will just get parameters and validate it for what user provided. That's why let's delete these parameters from API. We don't need it. Let's delete comment, and let's also delete from the flow. It simplifies us as software. And let's go next. Okay, almost done. Only one thing which we need to do is we didn't define API to execute task and execute flow. I have additional last minutes in today's morning, so let's define it. Execute task. So what we will have post task execute, which will have here task ID, and execute with body task parameters. Let's take parameters from URL, GitHub URL, task, so it will be task parameters defined in the task. And also we will need to have execute flow API, which will be pretty similar. We will have flow here. We will have parameters in the body for first task in the flow. And also here, when we define our data schema, we need to introduce two entities. It will be task execution, which will have ID, task ID I will omit here for simplicity. Let's go next. We will have parameters. We will have success. Let's put here parameters, success, data, error data, task execution, which will refer task. We need it to store in the separate table to allow to execute task, to use this transactional outbox pattern about which we were speaking in the previous video, and also we need to have another entity flow execution, which will have the same fields, almost the same. flow execution. Here will be flow ID, parameters, success error data, and also we will have here current node. We will have here state of the graph execution. I want to allow execute. I want to allow to execute nodes in parallel during flow execution, because we will do BFS during graph execution and doing breadth first search by executing multiple nodes at the same time, in case if we will have that connections. And it means that we are going to use parallel executions. That's why in the state we will save a list of current nodes. I will show it to you when I will develop the service. So what else? We added execute flow. Okay, it's good. DSL define it, data schema define it, API design done. Okay, in next step I will write document with system design for this Flowrun to have it documented and publish it in my blog. And after that I will start develop this Flowrun in programming language, about which I will speak later. Okay, it will be Golang, because Golang is the best fit for this infrastructure component. And thank you very much for watching this video. Subscribe to my channel and see you in next video. Bye.